Welcome to Difficult Research. My name is Crasha Easton, and we are going to read the transcript between John Pontius and Tom Harrison, who goes by Spencer in the book Visions of Glory. It's from an Unblog My Soul reunion in Orem, Utah on September 1st, 2012. I had uploaded the talk, but it was very hard to hear. So we're going to just, we'll just read it. When glorified beings come, this is John speaking. One of the things that you mentioned many times in our interviews, we spent 50 or 60 hours just like this, talking face to face. I recorded every interview, took note, and one of the things you said many times was that you are awakened to just how far the earth had fallen. Would you share with us that? Spencer says, on one of my experiences, I was able to see, well, first, there was a guide that came while I was clinically dead. He said he had some things to show me. When you're dead and this glorious heavenly being comes to you, there is a fascinating thing we find out about glorious heavenly beings when they come to you. I want you to think of Joseph in that room in New York. What did he see first? He saw light, and the light continued to grow until he saw Moroni standing in the light. That is how glorified beings come. It is at least my experience, brothers and sisters, when this individual came initially. That is how glorified beings come. It is at least my experience, brothers and sisters, when this individual came initially. He wasn't hiding his glory. He could, but I knew him before he appeared, and he did not need to introduce himself. His glory and majesty came before him, just like it came to Joseph. How did Joseph Smith know who Moroni was? Because when a glorified being comes to you, their majesty and glory precedes them, and you learn about who they are and what they are. I wonder why you would need to know what they are if you already know who it is, if it's God. I don't know if Jesus and Moroni are the same. I'm assuming. I don't know. Drop it in the comments down below if you have the answer to this. And you learn about who they are and what they are and what priesthood they have and how close, this is what gets me, and how close aligned they are to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Ghost. Well, if Jesus is appearing to you, why are you going to see how close they are aligned? They should be 144,000% aligned if they're that glorified being. Anyways, debunked. And so this is why I'm telling you, there is code talk. Just got to read in between the lines, so to speak. And you know that. And when they open their mouths, no introduction is necessary. Spencer goes on to talk about portals. Portals. Like Lori said, mortals. Spencer says about portals, now, when this heavenly being came to me and I was able to then move through the portal, I was in this portal with him, and I turned to him and I said, this seems really familiar to me. And he smiled, and I said, it feels as familiar to me as my right hand. This reminds me of the right hand, left hand thing. John says, you're talking about this classic tunnel of light? Spencer says, I am moving through the portal. I am going through the portal. And I said, this feels as familiar to me as my right hand. And he said, it should, because you came here and you built it. You manufactured it. And I said, is that true for all of us? And he said, yes. Then, as I was moving through, I turned to him and said, did the earth come through one of these also? Is there one big enough for the earth? Smiling, he informed me that yes, and that the earth had fallen thousands of years. Now, I still don't know what that means, that the earth has fallen thousands of years. The next subject is Christ as the great revealer, visions of things present, past, and future. Spencer says, I saw the earth for a moment in its glorified state and saw it as it fell, and then I was able to see myself. When we are in the presence of the Father and the Son, we have a I don't know how to really say it. He says it so damn fast. Mahonri, Moriankamer. I don't know. Moriankamer experience. Mahonri, Moriankamer. He says it a bunch of times, so just bear with me. I'm trying to remember how he said it. A Maharoni, Moriankumer experience. Maharoni, I don't know how to say it. Damn. Moriankumer had 16 stones that he molten out of rock. He took them to the Lord and said, "You told me to make these ships that are tight like a dish, and I don't want my people to travel almost a year across these waters in the darkness. Will you please touch these stones?" Now remember that when you're in the presence of God, what you see is as you are seen, and what you know is as you are known, having a fullness spelled with one L. And he refers to DNC 7694. How does God see us? As we are, as we were, and as we will become. When you are in His presence and see yourself as you are, as you were, and as you will become, for all things are before Him as one of eternal now. Now, that whole thing about see as you're seen and hear as you're heard, Mike Stroud says that so many times, because he actually makes a mistake when he says it. He says, "You see as you're seen and hear as you're heard." But anyways, when you see the earth, you see it as it was, as it is, and as it will become. Staying with the earth. Brothers and sisters, it is our job to stay with this earth and to stay with the prophet and to stay with Christ, not in that order. If we do, this earth, as it is transformed into its terrestrial and celestial state, will glorify us, for we are part and parcel of it. We are of the same structure, for it was created by the Son through the Father, and so were we. And so were we. If we stay with the earth, we will be glorified. And that is what it's about to take place on this planet. For it is almost finished with its celestial process, and we will be moving shortly into that which is terrestrial. When we moved into that terrestrial structure, then we will be glorified with it. Then that of the earth cannot touch us anymore. Remember, when you go to the temple, those ordinances are not telestial. They are terrestrial and celestial. Every time you go in the temple, first, this is code, the whole damn book. Anyways, first it bathes our feet like Ezekiel saw. Then it goes on to our ankles. Then it goes up to our waist. Then it goes up to our chest. And pretty soon it goes all the way over our head and it transforms us. For in it has the capacity to bring the church and all of its people, all of the church of the firstborn, all of the church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that which was given of the Father to its appropriate terrestrial and celestial state, and then the millennium will take place. So what that's basically saying is, and I don't know how many times I've said this, but the only way Chad and Lori could have gotten into the church of the firstborn, Chad's church, would have to be by the living prophet, 15 seer prophet revelator dudes, the upper management, the hierarchy, those ordained, they sustain them. Even that is the only way. I believe that Chad and Lori were ordained. They were sealed up with one another to it would be providing Chad it would provide Chad his polygamous wife, Lori, who they sealed in the temple in Gilbert, Arizona on a certain day by a certain someone in a certain place. And then walk Jason Mao, It's just what I think happened is that either Chad and Lori went rogue and, it got to their head, the whole ego thing. When you tell people that they're a queen and a priestess and a goddess and that he's a king, a priest, and a god, I'm sure that fucks with people's heads. Even people who have gone through this, who are ex-Mormons now, who are not in the church anymore. And I mean, I've been piecing these things together, trying to figure it out, and it makes total sense. It's the only place on this planet where this very language comes from. Mormonese is very unique. It's alone. There's nobody else that talks like this from my experience, from what I've learned and witnessed. People have said already that that there's no way that Chad and Lori could have gotten into that temple. There's no way. I mean, every person that I've talked to over the past couple years Everybody said that there's no way that they could have snuck into the temple and been still together. And we hear it in Chad Daybell's smutty, nasty ass James and Elena story that we all had to listen to and read and consume and have upset stomachs about because it is freaking gross, okay? Straight up nasty. I've heard people say that they must have done their own proxy sealing. They just did everything except implicate the damn church. This is where I have a problem because it's okay. If we never even consider the theory that this could be exactly what happened, that the upper management of said church is directly involved in this, do you not see this as a problem? You know, you are a church who controls the records of everybody on the damn planet, okay? Your family's been baptized. My family has been baptized. All our dead ancestors. They even baptized Anne Frank, who was a Holocaust survivor. Her surviving family members had to fight the church to get them to take her name, Anne Frank's name, off of their record. And they said finally they were like, the church of, you know what, said, oh yeah, sure, we removed her. I don't believe them. I mean, just integrity. I don't see that in these people. I wish I did. I wish that I did. So I'm just saying, think about it, put it on the shelf, and it's gonna break. It's gonna break because it's the only thing that makes sense. It's the only thing that tells the truth and tells all sides of the story to properly hold those that are accountable for this shit show, for these murders, for the polygamous temple sealing. Lori sealed to Charles, Chad sealed to Tammy, and then the church is the only place, the only people, the only authority to a Mormon that can invite them in. I think this is my theory, my conspiracy. I believe that the church actually did that. And that's when you get Lori, Melanie Gibb, and Jason Mao in that cringe podcast that they did together, and where Jason says how he and Lori met was so unique. It was so unique, and she walked in. She was told by someone wise to go to the temple and meet a certain someone in a certain place, and walked Jason Mao. And he just looked into her eyes, and he just knew in that instant, because he is such a seer, prophet, revelator, old Jason Cow. And he knew that she was one of us, a gatherer. Why? Because the president probably freaking told him so. He was the sealer. I mean, think about this. Just because it sounds crazy, everything else in the story sounds crazy. Why not this? Why the crazy doesn't stop with Chad and Lori? That's what's scary. Also, okay, if the church is never held accountable, it will continue to do so. Lori was never held accountable until now, and look where we're at now. What's another good example? What we allow is what will continue. In order to get into the Church of the Firstborn, you have to be invited, and everybody in the Mormon faith knows, and if not, you heard it here first. No, I'm kidding. That the Church of the Firstborn is the terrestrial church, okay? It's Enoch. It's nothing but Enoch, which is uncanonized, even in Catholicism, okay? So I want to say the only denomination that does practice or that does include the Book of Enoch is in somewhere in Africa, West Africa, South Africa, somewhere like that. I don't know the exact place, but they're the only place or people, they're the only people that do that, that include that. And which is crazy because Enoch is the easiest to understand, in my opinion. So in order for anyone to get into the Church of the Firstborn, you have to go through the proper keys / authority, and to a Latter-day Saint, that is their living prophet, not Joseph Smith, not any other dead prophet, not Chatty Daddy, but it would have to have been Nelson, President Nelson. So, and then, so either they, brought Chad and Lori together, sealed them together and everything, and then Chad and Lori went rogue, with all that money, power, and sex going to their head and storm. Or my other theory, don't come at me. Okay. But the other theory I have is that they were assigned missions, and part of their mission was to do a cleansing, blood sacrifice, if you will, blood atonement. It's very common. So again, I don't know. I don't know if Chad and Lori got called this maybe the 1-800 LDS helpline. I don't know, and they were like, "How many zombies we got today?" I mean, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure this. But anyways, the only way they could go into the Church of the Firstborn is via the proper authority, the proper keys, and the proper prophet. For in it has the capacity to bring the church and all of its people, all of the Church of the Firstborn, all of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Everybody knows that one's going to go into apostasy, basically, and that's what's going to bring the Church of the Firstborn down a level from terrestrial to telestial. That which was given of the Father to its appropriate terrestrial and celestial state, and then the millennium will take place. Opposite structures and what we sow is the title of the next chapter or whatever, their talk. John says, now this is interesting. Please listen closely. John Pontius says, on this transition that takes place into the millennial state, one of the things that it has to do is that it has to destroy okay, everything that remains of the telestial. In other words, by the time, correct me if I am wrong, but by that time, we are ready for the millennium and ready for Jesus Christ to return. That those things that are celestial can't be here. So what you're saying, when we must stay with the earth, what you are meaning that we need to remain in the gospel program. We have to remain in the pattern and the gospel process of the atonement so that we become changed in synchronization with the earth as it is going to fulfill its process. The 88th section of the Doctrine and Covenants tells us that the earth is going to abide the time. It is going to be celestialized. John wrote a paper and he calls it more celestial or oh my gosh, I don't know. He says it weird. So am I getting that right? It is going to be celestialized. So am I getting that right? Spencer says, I think that is doctrine. John says, so that when the earth evolves, that there is still a place for us here. Spencer says, but the dividing of the sheep and the goats, put a pin in that. But the dividing of the sheep and the goats, those that go with the earth, there are those powers that be in the earth today that do not want the process to happen because they lose their power. So he's basically saying like they're the adversary, they're the dark ones, they're the low-hanging fruit. They are the lesser light. You know how Jason Mouse says greater light knowledge? Greater being the Old Testament, lesser being the New Testament, lesser being Tylee, JJ, Charles, Tammy, and Joe, the dark ones, the zombies, my mom, Rhonda, aka Rhonda. They're dark. Okay. So it all, it's crazy. So, but the dividing of the sheep and the goats, those that go with the earth, there are those powers that be in the earth today that do not want the process to happen because they lose their power. John says, because they are telestial, meaning this world, they're worldly, Spencer says, they lose the structure. This is a warning. This is a warring telestial structure, and they want to fight as hard as they can to maintain it because once Christ comes back and calls it his, and we move forward in that process, the division is grand. It is amazing, and the war does not stop. He's talking about the spiritual battle, warfare. The war still maintains itself because those who are attached to it are as much or more attached to it as we are to the Earth's terrestrial